everybody, welcome to another video. We are here with the KLX today, and that is because we are putting it on the dyno again. We are on video number 5 here with the cast, so we're moving along, and hopefully we will be back on the KLX and the KX soon. So if you're new to the channel, this is my KLX here, KLX351 actually, because we have a big bore put on here. Of course, we have the full Barker exhaust. We're not running the airbox lid. We have the ported head, bored throttle body, and we have a power commander fuel controller under here to tie things all together, and we got it custom dyno tuned. So for those of you who aren't new to the channel and you've been following with this build, you might be thinking, why are you putting it on the dyno again? You had it on the dyno, of course, when you got it tuned. There were a couple of things that I wanted to fix, I guess you could say, on that dyno run. So number one, the dyno run that was done where the tune was done was in 5th gear instead of 4th. And then the other thing I wanted to check out here was I did the clutch switch mod after that, because after I saw that dyno run sheet, I saw that it dropped off up top, and I didn't think it should drop off that much with the ported head now, less restriction in the cylinder head. So on the European bikes, the KLXs are limited in the upper gears 4, 5, and 6, and the clutch switch mod is supposed to kind of undo that. Ignition timing is what it appears to change. That's what the dyno shop said, is that in the upper gears 4, 5, and 6, there's an ignition retard up top, which causes that power drop off. The clutch switch mod apparently fixes that, or at least helps it with the European bikes overseas. So I tried that, and I wanted to hit the dyno again to see if there actually is any change. So I've been talking too much already. Let's go ahead, get the bike loaded up in the truck, and then head to the shop. All right, dyno day number 2. KLX is on the dyno. Figured we'd look at some dirt bikes while we're waiting. Here's a 250XC. I have the 450, but clean looking bike. What do we have here? Some Hondas. Let's look at the X. I remember starting up the X here, and it seemed a little bit more corked up than the Kawasaki. I believe the X is Honda's cross-country enduro bike. The nice thing about the Honda is that they have headlights compared to the Kawasaki, but it's easy to add one. This looks like a 2021. You can see right there the Kawasaki KLX and the Honda Talon. Like I said in the last video, that'd be a tough choice, but I think a side-by-side would be pretty fun for the channel. Alright guys, it's been a few days, but we are back in the garage here with the KLX with the dyno numbers. So I also forgot to mention in the beginning of the video, this dyno is the very first dyno that we had to run on with the KLX here, when it was just the KLX351, only the big bore, none of the extra ported head, bored throttle body stuff. So therefore, the discrepancy between the dynos, if you want to consider that a factor, it should be pretty much negligible. So let's go ahead get the numbers here, and we'll dive into it because there's a lot of stuff here, and we actually learned a few things from this dyno run. So without further ado, let's get into it. So let's go ahead and look at the dyno run from up north in Seattle when we initially got the stage 3 tuned here, so we can get the numbers and look at what we're looking for: air to fuel ratio, power, all that stuff. As you can see right here, this is our dyno sheet. Max power was 30.47, torque was 21.49. Our peak power was at about 7,800 RPM, and then after that it kind of just dropped off. So when we saw that, we thought of the clutch switch mod because, like I said in the beginning of the video, overseas it kind of takes away that limiter so the bike can actually rev out in the upper gears. And just riding the bike, I felt like it did something, because you guys saw the run. I pulled all the way to 100 miles an hour. So like I said, we saw that the power kind of dropped off here, and we weren't really expecting that, considering that we did the ported head, the board throttle body. So that should have gotten rid of the restriction there, opened it up top, allowed it to at least make power to, I'd say, 9,000 RPM at the very least. So our air to fuel ratios here, the highest we ever got to was about 14, and that was on the throttle tip in. Towards the end of the run, we got to 12.2. Now that we have those numbers and we know what we're working with, let's go ahead and look at the new dyno numbers, and we got some learning to do. And here we go. So max power 30.78, max torque 21.67. So that means, wow, we still have that drop off. And now that we have it overlaid with our very first initial dyno run with just the 351, you can see what's going on here. So first things first, the 4th gear dyno run might have helped out a little bit. 4th gear, I think, is the closest gear to 1-to-1. As you can see here, the clutch switch mod, it appears to have done nothing, at least performance wise. But it is important noting that while the clutch switch mod might not work or do anything for the US bikes, it still kind of is something that is nice to get rid of. Sometimes that the switch fails and then the bike thinks that the clutch is out all the time, so it doesn't let you start. So in that aspect, I guess it kind of is nice to get rid of it. So with the 351, you can see that it dropped off right at about 7,500 to 7,600. With the ported head and all that, it did the exact same thing, dropped off in the exact same place. The only difference is that it peaked higher because, of course, we had better flow through the head, through the throttle body. The clutch switch mod did not unlock some spicy ignition scheme, ignition timing up top. You can see the patterns are very similar compared to just the 351 big bore plus the stage 3 mod stuff. Pretty much exactly the same. As you can see, it's a lot better having that overlaid with the initial dyno run compared to this chart right here, because it's pretty hard to make conclusions with just the scale here. But when I picked up the bike from the tuner in Seattle, which is definitely a great tuner, they're the guys who people take their bikes to all the way from California, Idaho, Oregon, up here in the Northwest. So what they told me is when I picked up the stage 3 KLX351 here, is that there's an ignition retard up top, and that definitely seems to be the case. So that's something we learned right there. Now let's go ahead, look at the AFR here, which is another strange, I guess, factor in this run. As you can see, the throttle tip in here, we are way rich, pretty much off the charts, down below 10, but that's below 3,500 RPM, which is right about where we started on the run from Seattle. So we start at about 3,800 RPM, and we actually are lean here, and you can see the numbers are much nicer. I'm running the same tune as the one from up north, so there shouldn't be too much of a change here. The run conditions were similar, but I don't believe I touched the dials on the side. But anyways, looks like I'm gonna have to make slight adjustments to the tune here to get the fueling down to about 12.8. But there you have it. We made about 0.3 horsepower more and 0.2 on the torque. So we're close to 31 wheel horsepower, which is definitely great considering that the EFI KLXs start out at about 18. But you guys know me, I want to max this bike out here and that's what we're going for. So the best opportunity to make some more power here is fixing this drop off. If we can get that line to continue on to at least 9,000, 9,500 RPM, we will be in good shape. You continue that line and we will probably be around 32, 33 horsepower with just the current setup. If you guys saw last video, this is my dyno run from the KX450X, and the power drop off is not nearly as bad as the KLX. This is what we're going for. So with the KLX here, we are gonna have to figure out a way to tune the ignition timing up top here. I have one idea that will probably work. I'm really just gonna have to save up to do that. I think we could definitely see above 35, 36 wheel horsepower on this KLX. I'm excited for that. That is gonna be a whole different bike. It's gonna pull like a 250 race bike. And that's another thing. A lot of people on the KX450, they're like, why didn't you just get a 250? Well, as you can see here, I'm closing in on 250 power in my KLX here. So why would I get a 250? Another 250 when I have this. All right, so that is gonna do it for today's video. So we didn't pick up the power that we thought we would by doing the clutch switch mod and fixing a couple other things with the initial dyno run of the stage 3 KLX, but that's okay because we have a plan moving forward on how to fix those issues, and hopefully we'll be implementing them at some point here soon. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to give it a big thumbs up. Also share it to your friends and those who may enjoy it or find it useful, especially with this video. And of course, if you're not subscribed, go down there, hit that subscribe button, get the bell on to keep up with all the action here. We should be returning shortly, hopefully, onto the bikes. And yeah, I think that's gonna do it. So with all that being said, join the club, and I'll see you in the next one.